So I guess by introduction, it's probably best to set the scene a little bit. As Anna said, my name is Michael James Wong. I'm the founder of an organization called Just Breathe, which is an organization focused on mental well-being, which is community-led and community-focused. You know, we do a lot of work in the community out there, building lifestyle practices for well-being, as well as online resources, apps, all kinds of other things. At the same time, I lead an organization as the director, which is all around men and mental well-being. And a lot of the work that I do is going to encapsulate a lot of the information that's already shared, which is fantastic because all of this seems to be very relevant right now as we look at what's happening now and essentially what's happening in the future, or more specifically what's happening next year. And as Carla mentioned, the infiltration of wellness or well-being across all industries is huge. It's paramount, and it's obvious that it's not going away, but it's also, for me, an understanding from the work that I do, first and foremost as a teacher, is to understand that where these trends are moving towards. And if we use trends as a way of the general direction in which people's attention are moving towards, as opposed to what's going to sell next year, is I believe there's the realization that moving forward, it is a shift towards community over opportunity. And the idea of this is really understanding that within this whole scope of wellness is that there are many things that will come to light over the next year that are amazing things that will start to bring us together, that create a sense of community in different pockets that allow us to really celebrate what's working and what is essential to our well-being, not what it's been for the past few years of wellness as a luxury response. The wellness industry as a whole has been very much shaped around this will work if this is the issue. This will help support this. And where I believe we're moving, and a lot of the work that we do is realizing that actually the forward progress is the reality that your well-being is essential to your humanity, not about fixing something that's broken. What I'm going to talk about today is a little about mental well-being for men, but also mental well-being as a whole conversation piece. Now, a lot of my work stems from speaking to different organizations and working as a support mechanism into creating these conversations that are lifestyle relevant. We work everything from the Royal College of General Practitioners, which Dr. Temmer talked about earlier, as well as speaking to everything from Parliament to big businesses on actually how we make well-being essential to our behavior patterns, as opposed to just looking at what is the single thing that's going to work to fix everything. Now, what I thought was really poignant and actually really great to keep this succinct is both Ben and Zoe talked very much on the stats of mental well-being. So I'm not going to go through that too much. You know, 1 in 4 people experience mental health, 1 in 8 people receive that treatment. Same with men, but those stats get a bit wider and a bit more, I'm going to say, scary, right? We all know that there's a stigma, like it or not, around men and mental well-being. The idea of conversation, the idea of looking for support or where that support exists. And a lot of times we look at what is the fastest education or information that we can find that can resolve an issue, as opposed to what is the inspiration from the community that can create the opportunity for people to feel a sense of their own purpose or their own well-being value. And I think what's really important as we look at this year and next year, whether you're a journalist or a business leader and you're creating something, is where's that sense of community that's being inbuilt into what we're creating for this wider perspective of what wellness is moving towards. Right? This idea of infiltration is a fantastic way to look at it. We look at it both from a medical side of it, where I'm not a clinician in any sense, but I do a lot of work with that industry of how we create integrated practices where there's that link of relationship, that we're not trying to resolve one thing with either a clinical response or a lifestyle response, but we're looking for an integrative way that people and men can actually have this sense of support as a whole, right? The trend that is going to arise hugely next year is the idea of giving support and being supported. And it's going to stem from people in this room, businesses like this, or people who are sharing this kind of story, is to realize that it comes from a place of how do we actually create space, communities, conversations, or relevant real-world connections that enable people the opportunity to feel like they belong somewhere. Right? Carla mentioned when she opened up, she always gets asked, you know, what's the color of the dress and all these kind of things. Natural human faculty is that we're always asking ourselves, what is next? What's happening next? What's going on? Right? It's the inquisitive nature of trying to figure out what's going to happen so I can prepare for that. if we could be so brave enough to recognize that if we can say that what is next is the idea that we respect the fact that we are humans first, and there's a community that is inbuilt within all of us, that actually how we see wellness moving is the reality that actually it is a place of belonging in whatever faction or faculty you choose to put your attention onto. Now with men and this whole revolution, and I speak from personal experience, I speak from a lot of both students and clients that I work with, or business that we work with, is that men have become this kind of interesting faction of conversation, right, within the scope of health and well-being or mental health. Ben and Zoe talked about health is health. Absolutely. Right? The separation between mental health and physical health has been one that has been distinctly different over the forever. And the reality of putting it back into health is that understanding that when there's a space that appreciates everyone is uniquely individual, that everyone has their own way of realizing what their value to themselves, the community, the people around them, then actually we see that there will be more and more peaking opportunities for people to realize that mental health is something that does not need to be softly spoken. It can be something that can be shared quite connectively through the ways in which we spend our time, the way we spend our money, the way we spend our lifestyle, because all of this, when we talk about wellness and well-being, is lifestyle practices, the way in which you integrate all of this as part of the conversation how you live your life. Right? And when we do that, ultimately, we find that there's going to be value exponentially, because we don't live as a society that is women and men. We live as a society of humans, or what you were speaking about the sense of humanity. Right? The biggest things that we'll find next year is community, opportunity for conversation, and a return to humanity. And for men in mental well-being, it's realizing that yes, there are conversations that have been had in the past, or ways that we see stereotype, ego, expectation limit us from the help that we seek, the potential that we can kind of find a disconnect. And ultimately, what we need to realize is that together, as a community, it should far surpass any opportunities that exist in a local market, but globalize the way in which we see a sense of relative connection as human beings. And that will ultimately, yes, help to elevate the whole industry. And at the end of the day, what we are as an industry, what we are as an opportunity for well-being, as proactive essentialism, is something that I believe is going to be the biggest trend next year, and also something that I think is a responsibility of everyone in this room to lead from the front, to realize that we're in this together, and it's these small conversations that will actually expand the way in which well-being becomes not only the biggest global trend, or the thing that is taking a lot of attention, but the thing that moves from what essentially was a first conversation of celebration, which is kind of what we always talk about, is 2018 was the moment of celebration. Wellness is a thing. It's happening. Right? And then 2019 was, let's normalize this. Right? We've got great organizations that are doing things that become normal vernacular. 2020 is the way in which we actually make this something that is essential to well-being, and it's not longer an industry of luxury, and it's no longer an industry of response, and it's an industry that is really built on community and not opportunity.